Hey. Okay, so I am a big journaler. I don't know why that helps me process my feelings better than just thinking them in my head. But I have this cool journal and it's got quotes at the bottom. And today's quote I wanted to read to you because I thought it was really good and relevant to this channel. And it's by Albert Einstein, and it says, "A ship is always safe at shore, but that's not what it's built for." And I think that's really beautiful because often we feel safe and comfortable in our certain thought patterns, our current way of thinking. We feel safe and comfortable where we are because it's what we know. And it doesn't make us always realize that if we were to leave the shore and find things that feel differently, or different thought patterns, or different ways of looking at things that might be scary at first, that we could actually feel better. And a lot of what I try to talk about on this channel is how we feel about living with type 1 diabetes, and how we can make peace with it. And if you're at a place where you feel safe and you're on the shore, you may feel better if you're sailing. And it may be that trying on different thought patterns, even if they don't work immediately or if they don't feel right, may help you get to a place where you're really feeling better than you are, basically. So I'm sure I could have said that better, but I think it's a good way to start today. So what I want to talk to everyone about in this webinar is looking at our relationship with our health. And I want to leave it as health in general because type 1 diabetes is just a part of that. A lot of us probably have other things going on, right? The type 1 diabetes comes with an increased likelihood of other diagnoses. You might have celiac disease. You might have Hashimoto's thyroiditis, a thyroid autoimmune disorder. You may have an eating disorder because those are really common, especially in females with type 1 diabetes. You may have irritable bowel syndrome because that also increases your risk. You may have ADHD or other mental health diagnoses. And when we think about ourselves, if we just focus on the diabetes, if we just focus on the blood sugar management, right? We could have that perfect, but we still may not have that great relationship or that desired relationship with our health. And so I want to kind of start with this big picture of who we are and what our body is here to do for us. Because I think that what really helped me was separating who I am in my head and my heart from my physical body. Because I truly believe it doesn't matter if you were born without 4 limbs, or if you're in a wheelchair, or what color your hair is or your skin is, or what you're able to do, or what diagnoses you have, or what organs in your body do or don't work. You have yourself, you have your soul, you have your heart. You have who you are, you have what you decide, you have how you choose to see things, you have what you care about and your passions, right? And I think separating who we are from our body is a first step to really looking at we are whole and complete. You know, I think when we think about our body physically and we say, I have this organ, this pancreas that is not functioning optimally, I can't see my body as whole and complete. It is not whole and complete when I compare it to someone who has a functioning pancreas, right? That doesn't feel good. That way of looking at things, that comparative nature, isn't healthy in any walk of life, isn't usually useful in many walks of life either. But that idea that when we take away that kind of logical list of, you know, organs that work, you know, and comparing it to the rest of the population, and we look at who we are today and we separate ourselves from our body, we can absolutely say that in my heart, in my head, I am whole and complete. You know, I have all of who I am here with me today. And that's what matters. That's the stuff that matters for life. And I think truly that's the stuff that matters for being happy and healthy, you know, is having you, having who you are, having what makes you different on the inside. And so separating that is kind of step one. So understanding that we have the body that we have. We have the cards that we were dealt. Some people are born with two parents that stay together their whole life. Other people are born into single parent households. Other people have parents that are divorced. We all have different cards there, right? We all have different cards in other things, right? We have different cards in what type of career we chose. We have different cards that we are played in what economic status we were born into, right? We have different things. What schools did we go to as kids? There were so many things out of our control that are given to us, you know, and it's how we play them. So I think that there is absolutely no reason to compare ourselves to other people. That's really hard. And I think that's not something that's easy to turn off or intuitive to turn off. A lot of how we understand our place in society or our place in the world, or whether or not we're good or okay or enough, comes from comparison. And that's kind of human nature. It's kind of a safety mechanism that we kind of came with over the years. And we're not here to talk about whether that's right or wrong or good or bad. We're just here to decide whether or not we want to use that idea of comparison of the physical body with other people, or if we just want to be us. And I think that if we believe we have our heart, we have our mind, we have our whole self, we are whole and complete who we are today, looking at our physical body as less than or trying to compare apples to apples is really irrelevant and not important. And we all have different things. We all have different cards, you know, and comparing isn't going to get us anywhere. But strategizing on how we want to play our cards, that's what's going to help us feel good. I think that's what's going to bring us that quality of life that we're looking for, or at least that's what's helped me get to where I am today, where I feel much, much better about it than I did when I was younger. So thinking about it that way, thinking about I am not my body, you know, I'm separate than that. I'm whole and complete as I am, as number one. Number two, you know, really looking at who we think we are, you know, and really thinking about life as a whole and what our purpose is here. Because often if we can find purpose, and I don't mean like your life's purpose, like you have to have one thing that you care about for the rest of your life. I just mean whatever's important to you in this chapter. So your purpose today, maybe you're a student, your purpose is going to school and learning your chosen topic. Maybe your purpose is being a dog mom and making sure your dog gets a walk and good food today. You know, maybe your purpose is calling your grandparents and loving on them, you know, because they're getting older and you want more conversations. You can have lots of different purposes, but really there have got to be a few things that you can hang on to that make you feel like that's why you're here. You know, that you're making a positive difference, that who you are today, the way you are expressing yourself today, not how you think you should be, but the way you are showing up today is positive. And if you can't find a thing that you're doing that reflects to other people around you or other pets or whatever, you know, is in your life, taking care of yourself, that's purpose, right? Because when you're able to take care of yourself, when you're able to love on yourself and continue to manage your type 1 diabetes, keep yourself alive, you're showing up. You're here in the world, you're showing up, you're doing good, you're creating space where you can do more good in the future. And taking care of your health is the background for that. So looking at those two things, and then we add on, you know, really this idea of acceptance. So this would be our third topic of today, is really looking at acceptance. You know, do we hate the fact that we have a diagnosis of type 1 diabetes, plus or minus, you know, some other diagnosis? Do we hate that about ourselves? Because usually when we hate something, or we don't like something, or we have really any negative energy around it, it often means that we haven't accepted it yet. And I like to think of this almost like a concept of forgiveness, right? And I like this, forgiveness means a lot of different things to different people and different cultures. And a way of looking at it that I think is relevant to this conversation is one of the ways that I've heard it described by Oprah Winfrey. And she says that forgiveness is the process of accepting that it happened and being able to move on. It doesn't mean that you necessarily have to think that it was okay. You don't necessarily have to think that it was good, but it's that process of accepting and being able to move forward. And so I think that often we haven't yet come to a place where we've accepted it. And that usually happens more right around diagnosis, but not always. I think this idea of like, okay, I understand, I am letting myself see clearly that type 1 diabetes is a part of my life right now, and it will likely be a part of my life for much of the future, right? We don't know yet for a cure, we can't make guarantees. So for much of the future, type 1 diabetes will be a part of my life, and that is okay. It's okay. It doesn't have to be good. It doesn't have to be something that we condone, right? It doesn't have to be something that we are glad that happened, but like, it happened, I'm gonna be okay. You know, I got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. It's here, you know, and I see that and I accept that. It's gonna be okay. You know, I think that we have to choose to think that. And it might be hard because a lot of times, and if this were me 10 years ago, and I were to say, I have type 1 diabetes and it's gonna be okay, I would have all of these thoughts rush into my mind, like, well, what if I don't have healthy kids, or I can't have a family, or what if it holds me back in school and I don't get as good grades and I can't get as good of a job that I would have without it, or what if it means certain boys won't want to date me, or what if it means that I'm not going to make as many friends because they're going to think I'm different, or what if it means I can never enjoy my grandma's cookies at Christmas because my blood sugar is going to be high and it just doesn't feel as good when my blood sugar is high after. Like, what if? I would have had a million what ifs. And I think that that's normal and that's natural. But I think that there's a way to move past those what ifs by really looking at what are your choices. And this is kind of that, I don't know if this is like ultimatum thinking, and I'm not saying this is the only way to do this process or to think about it, but it's worth maybe trying on, and you can ditch it later if it doesn't work for you. But like, my choice with type 1 diabetes today and 10 years ago was I could live with type 1 diabetes and navigate the highs and lows, you know, that come with it, and the actions that I have to do, treat lows, take insulin, etc. I could do those things and feel really, really sorry for myself and be upset about it and be angry about it, and not even like big emotions, but those little chronic feelings that pop up, right? Like your high alarm goes off and you're in the middle of doing something for work or maybe doing homework and you're like, oh, this is so frustrating. I wish I could think straighter, you know, or straighter. I think I could think better. I wish I could, you know, do whatever differently. It's not fair. I messed up. I should have been more careful when I was counting carbs at dinner. I should have waited for the bend on my graph, you know, after I bolus instead of just eating the whatever right away, because that I knew better, but I didn't do it because I was just hungry, and it's my fault, and I'm broken, and I'm bad, and I have this disease that sucks, and it's not fair, and I'm making it worse for myself. And that type of thinking will absolutely trash your entire relationship with yourself in life. And when that thought process comes up, it can be super hard to turn off. But I feel like so many people default to that. And I think that out of a lot of the friends I have with type 1 diabetes, we talk about this, and when I bring it up, it's kind of something that seems to be what other people experience, or lots of other people experience, is this. We default to the self-blame game, and we have to learn to turn it off. I don't think that we necessarily learn to not have it immediately, or at least I haven't yet met anybody that has. And if you have, that is super cool. So please leave a comment so I can learn from you. But with this idea, it's like we have this like, woe is me, like, poor me, this sucks, right? That you're never gonna feel like your best self. You're never gonna feel happy and healthy if you allow those persistent thoughts to continue, you know, especially chronically. It happens every now and then still to me. Actually, the other day I forgot to take my Lantus. Woke up in the morning with high blood sugar, which is atrocious. I haven't done that in a long time. But it's okay, right? Like, it happened. And I was hard on myself when I woke up and I looked at my graph and I was like, whoa, why am I so high? That doesn't make any sense. What happened? I didn't eat anything before bed, and then it hit me like, oh, I forgot to take my Lantus. Like, what? I knew better. I should have done better. Like, I have education to know that that was exactly what was going to happen. I was going to wake up high. Like, why did I let myself forget? Why didn't I prioritize my diabetes better, right? Like, it happens. It doesn't happen as often as it used to. But the idea is to try and turn off the chronicity of that, the frequency of that. So I think that what we can do then with this idea of acceptance is really look at, I can accept that I have diabetes. And when I look at my cards, I can either say, I'm gonna have to do the actions, right? I'm gonna have to take the Lantus. I'm probably gonna forget the Lantus at least one point in my life in the future. Again, it's probably gonna happen, right? Like, I'm a human. We really look at how can we optimize, how can we change those thoughts? And so if we get real clear in our mind, and I'm gonna say this slowly so you can think it through and decide whether or not it's true for you or something that you wanna take on or try on as a thought, is we have two choices. We have the choice of what I just described, having type 1 diabetes, doing the action, feeling sorry for ourselves, allowing thoughts to come through our mind that don't feel good, allowing ourselves to feel like we got the short end of the stick in life and look for all the reasons the diabetes brings for us to remember that we got the short end of the stick in life. Or we can say, I have diabetes, that is okay, I'm gonna have it, and I'm gonna figure out how to do the best life with the cards I was played. And I'm gonna love myself through it. And I'm going to chase my dreams anyway, right? And I'm gonna go for the things that I wanna do anyway. And I understand it's gonna come with a little extra thinking, a little extra actions than other people or other peers, but I'm not gonna look at myself as less than. I'm gonna look at myself as different, right? Their metabolism runs in, I love this analogy, their metabolism runs in automatic, my metabolism runs in manual. We have to shift a little bit more often. When they're not shifting, that's okay. That's not a disadvantage. It's gonna teach us a lot of things. And I think truthfully, when you look at those two options, there's only one choice that makes sense, and you might want to hold on to this feeling sorry for yourself option until you're ready to start thinking about it differently. But really, if your goal is to live a happy, healthy life, if your goal is to feel good with diabetes most days, probably, choosing the latter, choosing the side of being okay with it and just deciding you're gonna make a good life anyway. That's probably the one that's gonna get you there the fastest. And it would be, I think, really hard to get there if you choose not to question the thoughts that come up when you're hard on yourself or when you feel less than or broken because you have type 1 diabetes. So with that, I think that what can help if you choose to try on the thought of, okay, I have this thing, I'm just gonna rock it and figure out how to have a good life anyway, mentality, then what can help, or what helped me a lot, was looking at the good that diabetes had already brought into my life. So I think it's tempting to think about all the future things of good that can happen, but that's less convincing because there's, it's not happened yet. Our human mind is really good at, when we see, a list of facts, being like, okay, that's real, right? So if we're trying to convince ourselves that it's real, that diabetes is okay, it's real, that we can have a good life anyway, let's look at the good things that have brought forward in our life because of diabetes. So I can say for me, when I was 13 and I had to figure out how to make friends after my diagnosis, and I was already different because I came from a different country, and now I had a different, disease that made me different and made me feel like people were gonna make fun of me because it has the word diabetes in it. I then had to learn that it's okay. It's okay to not care a lot about what other people think of me. Like, I really had to get to that place where I had to say, it's okay to be different. I can still be me and be great and have fun and do life. I can still be good. I can still be enough. And if someone says that I'm less than because of my diabetes, or because I have different cultural norms from living in another country, or whatever else makes me different in this world, which is a lot, I'm okay anyway. I had to let go of caring so much about what other people thought, and not in a way that was like defensive or angry, but in a way where it just actually decided, I think, differently. I don't know if you've ever been to like a lecture or something where someone's preaching, you know, their ideas, and in your head you're like, oh, you know, I get what they're saying, but I actually think it's this way. Kind of like that. That's what I would do. So if someone was like, oh, well, I'm so sorry for you because you have diabetes, I could never do that. Or even people who are bullying or making fun of people or wondering, you know, if you're going to be okay, or all these things, you know, that happen as we interact with the society that we live in, our peers. I would just, you know, if I ever felt like someone was judging me for being less than, I would just correct myself, you know, like I would just in my head say like, no, I'm good, I'm okay. You know, no, that's just the way it is. You know, I don't need to worry about what they're thinking. I just have a different opinion, and that's okay. You know, I think when you get confident about who you are and how you think of yourself and what you know to be true, it's easier to say like, no, I'm just gonna let them think that, or teach them if you want. But what's most important is that you don't let their thought make you feel less than. And so that's cool, because diabetes taught me that, but that's like gotten me through so many other things, because you're not always going to be like everybody in your friend group or everybody in your school group or everybody in your coworker group. So you have to be okay with being you. And I think that really, diabetes taught me that. So that's cool, right? Because I don't know if I would have learned that lesson as strongly as young if I didn't have diabetes there to like make me learn it. That's one, right? Another is knowledge of biochem. Like in science, we learn about a lot of these negative feedback loops, which are basically blood sugar bolusing loops, you know, and how things turn on and off. And so I felt like I had a one-up in my biochem classes in college and med school, and that was nice because it made at least those a little easier. You know, I think that diabetes has brought tons of great relationships and friends through the summer camp that I volunteer at, through other places. When I was in college, I got an internship because I had type 1 diabetes and they were looking for students with type 1 specifically. I think that diabetes has also taught me dedication and resiliency, because diabetes is really hard. And actually, I was talking about this at the summer camp that I was working at Lions Camp this year with the oldest girls cabin. And we had everybody, there were 36 girls with type 1, and we asked the question, if you could have quit diabetes already, would you have quit? And most girls who were listening at least raised their hand. You know, it was like, yeah, I would have quit. I would have quit a long time ago. Probably would have quit day 1 and day 5 and year 10 and now. You know, if I could have quit, I would have quit. But I can't, right? Like it's that challenge that comes into life, this blood sugar management challenge that will be there every day. You cannot quit. And that's hard, but also teaches you the like get back up on the horse mentality. You know, when a class is hard and the tests aren't good, like you don't quit the class, you just get back up on the horse and you try again, just like diabetes. When life gets hard or relationships are hard or whatever it is, learning to play a new sport is hard, you just keep trying, because that's what you do with diabetes, and eventually it gets better, you know. And I think that's really cool. I remember very vividly, there was a night in med school where I was exhausted and overwhelmed and felt like I wasn't going to be able to read all the lectures before the test came, and I had so much fear about failing, and I just remember like, I really want to quit. Like I really want to quit med school. Like I'll go back to being a yoga teacher, what I was doing before, and I'll be peaceful at least. But I didn't, right? And I think that diabetes helped with that, right? It's like you can do hard things. If you've made it this far, if you're watching this video and you have type 1 diabetes, that means that you've done a lot of hard things to get here with your health, right? Taking your own shots isn't easy. Figuring out how to keep your blood sugar in range, or at least keep yourself out of DKA, that's hard. So you can do hard things with diabetes, and it taught me, or I think at least lowered my threshold for believing I could keep trying, and made it less likely for me to quit things. So that's another cool thing. I feel like I could go on, and some of these may ring true for you, they may not at all. And I think what's really helpful is if you sit down and either talk out with someone or write out, you know, on a piece of paper or on your phone, those good things that diabetes has brought to your life up until this point, that can be helpful at trying this thought on, because it really then challenges your brain to say, well, how could I completely hate it, if it's brought these good things? There is some truth to it being okay, So I'll leave you with that. I think that would be a great experiment after this, is again to talk out or to write out the good things that diabetes has brought, and to really ask yourself, if you had those two choices, if it was that ultimatum, and again, it's not, but just as a thought experiment, is that feel sorry for myself with type 1 diabetes for the rest of my life, or figure out how to live a healthy, happy life and appreciate what it brings me and love myself anyway and move forward towards my dreams, despite having type 1. I think that, the choice isn't hard to make. It's really just when you're ready. So I hope this helps you. If it brings up anything, any thoughts or questions or stories that you have, please leave comments below. I really love reading those. And I will see you next time.